we ready to be? So my name is Rupert Hoogewerf. I'm the founder of Hurun. We're in my second trade year. So I started in 1999, starting trying to tell the story of the emerging economies of the world through the stories of its most interesting and successful entrepreneurs. We felt that these stories resonated very much to us. A good way to tell the story of the economies of, in my case, China, India, and now we're on to 8 or 9 other countries. I'm really proud of what we've done here again. You see what has achieved with everybody's support help. It's a real pleasure to be here. Now, on my panel today, the idea is that we only got 15-20 minutes, so we're going to have a very short panel. But the idea is to try and talk a little bit about, sort of where does India stand and where is it going? We have both from the point of view of the investor, one of the most respected investors here, Manish's and then what first, and a very respected unicorn from InMobi, Naveen. So the Indian economy, when I first being we set up in 2012 was not even in the world GDP. Now we're at number 5, and everybody's talking about grade number 3 in next say 2 years. In terms of unicorns, India is already number 3 in the world. We have 67 known unicorns in India, with another 60 started by Indians, mainly in the US, Bay Area. So we're a very strong number 3 for basically the US, China, India, and then the UK sort of just behind that. And so those are my first question today, is what tailwinds are propelling India today? How do global investors see India today versus, say, a few years ago? And so perhaps, just before we start, I'd like to invite you all to give a very nice warm round of applause to our 2 speakers. So, Manish, I'd like to ask you first, so what tailwinds, from your point of view, do you see that driving India forward? And then from a global perspective, how has that changed?
One reveals lots. This is, we were all together at McKinsey years ago. He's a dear friend. We went to same business school. I'm much younger than he is, but that's besides the point. More seriously, Rupert, from an investor's point of view, I think India knows no limit. Right? But I do think, on a more serious look at the history of India returns, there is a bit like what you said. We were nowhere in 2010, 15 years ago, and we're really the preferred destination today. And it's not just having factually, if you look at returns, the only 2 markets in the world to have given returns which are more from the risk-adjusted perspective is been the US and Indian markets. If you look at it from a 3-year, 5-year, 10-year, or a 15-year perspective, these 2 markets have consistently overperformed. The biggest difference in India has been the story in 2010 was you invest in India, you invest a lot of money in India, but nothing comes out. There's a word called DPI that we as the industry believe in. There has been a significant increase in the amount of capital that has been returned to investors. And that's driven by, 1, the buoyant IPO markets, which are a driver from our 50 or 60% of our exits. But increasingly in the last 5 years, the total of capital, both with financial sponsors, domestic funds, global funds in India, has been extreme, as well as the strategic interest in India. Today, a global multinational FMCG company can't function without having a base in India. Right? So the combination of the IPO markets, the financial sponsors, and the strategic investors has what's made India a phenomenal. Now, the reason for that, we can get it's because of entrepreneurs like Naveen, like most people in the room. But if you look at the quality of Indian entrepreneurs, of course, there's a population size of market at that. But I would say the quality of the entrepreneurship is second to none.
Thank you very much indeed. I mean, so from leading from that, so the entrepreneurs, Naveen, how do you see the tailwinds moment that driving a business like InMobi forward at the moment?
Firstly, thank you for inviting on the panels. It's amazing to be here. I think from an entrepreneurship point of view, I think the world has truly changed in the last 15 years. 15 years ago, when I think first time we started the whole journey for building a company, it was very different than what it is today. I think in the last 15 years, in slightly different perspective, is the fact that I think India now actually is riding on a very different level of hope. And what I mean by that is every middle class Indian who is growing up today can say, I can build a billion-dollar company. That level of hope and that level of ambition is not driving the 67 unicorns that you think or 125 unicorns that are built. It is actually driven like thousands and thousands and thousands of people to push the envelope on innovation, to push the envelope on technology, to push the envelope of the country to be very different. And I think this is not stopping. I think we have a country which is supremely ambitious. We have a very young set of, very educated, by the way, and very ambitious set of Indian, folks who all want to be entrepreneurs. I was telling the story today morning to somebody who interviewed me back in 2008 because at that time I wanted to get interviewed, not for my reason, because at that time it was impossible for me to hire an engineer because the engineer was not getting married, because people would look up the company, the prospective girl's parents would look up the company and say, the company is not Infosys. So the only answer I had at that point of time was to go get my name on Times of India so that the guy could get married. That's not the case today. The roles have reversed. You actually, if you're top of the class, you don't want to go to a big corporate. You want to go start your own journey. That is where the risk-taking by a large mass of people actually has happened. So I would say it's a very fundamental change in culture of the company where entrepreneurs are coming at mass, and it's an unstoppable wave.
Well, no, thank you. I mean, it is India's global moment, and yes, a lot of people sort of been talking about when it is Google or Tesla coming in recently in China. We've seen this sort of DeepSeek AI model that just came out and pushed the American market $1 trillion US down for a short time. I was actually talking to a friend in China that they were sort of joking up. Well, no evidence, it is sure not. But the guy behind DeepSeek is actually a hedge fund trader. And so my sort of friend was saying, well, clearly he must have shorted the market on NVIDIA in order to make his big money there. That's why he's not even to raise money on DeepSeek. But anyway, beside that point is, we've got 1,450 unicorns in the world. Actually, Hurun now is the number one sort of ranker compiler of unicorn lists in the world. About 700 in the US, about 300 are in China. As we say, about 70 are of it in India. UK is just behind the 50. Sort of, when are we going to see these sort of global technology-based companies coming through? Sort of China, we've had the likes of Shein or Shine, Pinduoduo, that's sort of gone to 100 billion range, that sort of that. Clearly, we know that there's a lot of businesses here that are looking at that sort of. But what do we need? What's the next step for India to hit this technology goal? And perhaps I'll start with you and then ask Maddie to sum that one up.
Look, I think you always need your home market to be very large in order for the company to get to those level of scale that you just referred to. And therefore, I think it will take a little bit of time for the technology companies or companies that are only based in India market to get to those very significant skills. But I don't think it's that far off, firstly. So I think it's a few years away. But I think there is a moment here where we are actually looking at a lot of tech companies coming out here where, especially with artificial intelligence being certainly cheap in the last 1 month, ability for very fast, rapidly innovative generative AI application companies that can actually drive, that can be built for throughout the world is a possibility now. And I would argue that when you are able, when the internet kicked off, 25 years ago, India was not in the picture. You now have a next wave where generative AI is actually kicking off. It's a new wave, new platform. India is ready. So you just have to watch for the next 3 years. You'll be surprised how rapidly some of these companies will get creative. We were not ready 25 years ago. We are ready today. And therefore, the companies that will get created, because they can run globally, you can actually see the scale of those companies that you just referred to get created from here.
Thank you very much, Manish. And perhaps we can also sort of talk a little bit about the sort of ecosystems. We see the US sort of started Silicon Valley, 70s, 50, 60 years ago, and it still attracts brains and talents from all over the world. But Bangalore Media is one of the missing pieces. I don't know. What is the missing pieces?
I actually want to challenge the premise of your statement, Rupert. I think India already has the Tesla equivalents and the Shein equivalents. I would say looking across a couple of sectors. And let me also first give you 2 examples. One is, I used to be at Temasek, which was the state holding company for Singapore. We owned Singapore Airlines, Sigtel, DBS Bank. In 2004, when we compared DBS with HDFC or ICICI, Bajaj Finance wasn't even around at the time, or we compared Sigtel with Bharti, the market cap was 10 to 1. Today, the market cap of any of the larger banks in India is larger than that of BDFs, and Bharti is more than that of Sigtel. Essentially, you have a business system and a value chain which is globally competitive in both these cases, in both these sectors. And I'm not even talking about the Bajaj Finance of the world, which were born less than 15 years ago and already have a market cap of $80 billion. So I think India already has the sort of companies that you're talking about, and it's coming from 2 things. One is the hunger of the entrepreneurs, and the second is the level of innovation. It's not surprising that some of the very companies that you're talking about in the US, which I think is still by far the leader in the whole entrepreneurial space, is driven by talent which has been educated in Bangalore, Hyderabad, and Bombay.
Okay. Well, I mean, the entrepreneurs, and that's sort of what we're celebrating today, is the wealth creation and entrepreneurship, trying to give fuel to this. But from an investor's point of view, perhaps from myself, I'm a UK-based person. If we're trying to look for the next thing, what should we be investing in? And we've seen a lot of reports about India sort of building a global supply chain. Apple sort of come here. We've seen that India is now doing $800 billion exports. It's still less than China's 3.4 trillion, but it's 1/5, 1/6 of China's exports. And there's obviously a big thing in healthcare. Traditionally, like Lilly Sankey's Sun Pharma, that's been very strong. There's manufacturing, there's consumer goods, obviously AMI, you mentioned some government. So where do you think the next thing should be? Perhaps Manish?
Rupert, first, partly tongue-in-cheek. My question to you is, why are you still in the UK?
Well, Alice has been asking that many times, saying I should be moving up here. But...
No, my serious point in that, Rupert, I was only pulling your leg, is the fact that I think if you want to invest in the next breed of leaders in India, you cannot do it out of Silicon Valley or Singapore. I think you need to be in Bangalore, in Gurgaon, in Mumbai, or in Hyderabad. You got to be local. Because to me, it's not, when you ask the question, to me, it's not a vertical, it's not a theme. To me, there are 2 or 3 basic. One is governance. I think no matter how good an entrepreneur is, if there's even a speck of a question mark on the governance or ethics, we would shy far away. And I don't think, my bet is the guy will not be successful in today's world. Maybe the yonder years where things were done in a different manner are over. And then I would say, when you look at almost any business, you normally start with a tap. I mean, that's a bit with Naveen started off with. The market size, what we're looking at in India today, you're at the tip of the, when we got back from the US in the mid-90s or late 90s, there was no product called mortgage, right? You had to put a check, I was going to say cash, but you put a check to buy your house, right? Today, the mortgage, the housing finance industry is huge. We sort of funded a company called ours. There's hundreds of housing finance companies, but we're at the tip of the iceberg. The hidden part of the iceberg, which is the rest of the market, and the potential is massive. So I think with proper governance, there's a dam out there already. It's a matter of getting, is there just simply the execution ability of the entrepreneur? I don't think you need to look at it by vertical. I think it's individual and entrepreneur driven.
Got you. Okay, thank you very much for that comment, Naveen.
I completely agree with that, by the way. I actually, when you were asking the question, I was struggling because I was going to say yes to every vertical you were saying, and then I would have added 5 more to it. I completely agree with Manish. I think it's not a vertical question. The country has, we are sitting at close to $4 trillion of economy. You can pick your number. You could get to about $10, $12 trillion in the next several years. I am a technologist, so I believe technology would be a very big lever in doing all of these things. So I lead with that fundamental thesis. I fundamentally believe that technology, probably in our stock market today, contributes to less than 5%, maybe 3 to 4% of the technology stock. That includes the services companies or the tech IT services companies, which is okay. In the US, the stock market is roughly about $50-60 trillion or so. More than 50%, maybe 60% of that is technology. We're just starting off this wave. So if you were to essentially be a bearish guy, and you have to believe in the power of entrepreneurship and the fact that technology becomes a level playing field, because it doesn't, especially with artificial intelligence, you also don't need as much resources to essentially build something. You just need to be creative, hungry, and you have to think very, very big. You have to go after hard and big problems. You actually are looking at a world where 25 companies will create $10 billion company in the next few years. So therefore, we are in the game for the first time at the right time. And I think we may just come out of this winning so big that people might just be very, very surprised by what just happened, because we are really hungry out here to try and build this. And so the next 15, 20 years, you should certainly move here, because it'll help you count the number of whatever unicorns, etc., much easier.
The taxes are going to get to you in any case, Rupert, so you might as well do it sooner.
I think that's great. Well, the last question here, to sort of try and tie you down a little bit, is we're going to wind you back. You can keep your brains as they are today and your memories, but we're going to wind you back 25 years, and we're going to give you 10, 20 lakh, let's say 20,000 US. What are you going to do? How are you going to turn it into the next $1 billion business? Perhaps start with Naveen, and then on to this last question. You're giving me that money today? Yeah, I'm giving you today. And you're a young Indian. You're 25 years younger than you are today, and you've only got this money. What are you going to invest in?
Well, I think I could do 2 things with it. I could just put it into the market, compound that, probably at about 25% IRR for the next 10 years. That is going to make the money go 10x. If I do it for 20 years, it's going to make it 100x at that same compounding. So yeah, I could make a lot of money if I'm a smart guy who's come out of this, and I would do all of this on the side, because the machinery would allow me to essentially build these kind of models and investments that will allow me to do this. So I would actually really back the industry today and invest into the market for sure with $20,000.
So basically, you're saying you want to be a Manish. You want to start out, you'll invest into
the reason I said that,
when you're successful, everybody will say, hey, can you invest with me? Can you invest my money as well?
The reason I said that is because you don't need as many resources that you needed 25 years ago in order to start something. Because you can actually build your creativity, just requires 3 to 4 people now, and you can be off and go. So I would take the money, put it in investment.
Manish?
Well, if I was 25 years younger, I would be looking at chocolates and baby food, because I feel I'm 25 years today. But that's not where I would invest the money. On a more serious note, and actually, strangely agreeing with Naveen, I do think India has already probably some of the world's best money managers. There are many Warren Buffetts in the room. And actually what we've learned, the only way to make money is to be differentiated and really know what your angle is. I wouldn't know what my angle was 30 years ago. I don't even know what it is now. But at 30 years ago, I definitely did. I would deploy capital in another manager, the Warren Buffett of India, and actually not pretend to be managing actively myself, is what I would do.
Well, look, anyway, I was trying to pin them down on particular industries. They've come down on the investment industry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much indeed, Naveen and Manish, and thank you for your time joining us tonight. Thank you.